This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. Very excited to be speaking with Hagar Ben-Asher about Bad Boy. How are you, Hagar?
Good. How are you?
Good. I had a chance to watch the first two episodes of this show almost 2 years ago now, as part of the Toronto International Film Festival. So it's exciting to see that it's still around and about to come to a really big audience. Can you talk about your history with this show and what you knew of this real life story?
Well, it is, I mean, it's inspired by or based on, or, roughly based on the life story of Daniel, who's a very successful and famous stand-up comedian in Israel. But the beauty of this is that his story and the fact that he spent his entire youth in juvie was an unknown fact. Nobody knew this. And this show, in many ways, is the first time that he actually goes out to the world with a story. And how it came to me. It had a very long history, people tried to write it and try to grasp the story and make it into a show until he called me up one day after he watched my film Dead Women Walking, which is also a prison film. And he said, would you be interested in joining the gang and trying to make this into a show? And Ron Leshem, my partner, was already on board. So we joined forces and made it happen.
And what is most different about it from the real story? Like, what things did you want to make sure you preserved, and other things that you sort of had to modify for dramatic purposes?
From, I think, it's funny how what a starting point of story is, right? I mean, sometimes it can just be a sentence of a book that you decide to make into something bigger. Um, I think that more than anything, thematically, we pursued what he came to us with. Okay, so he became a stand-up comedian in prison, and I think that was what was gripping for me in the idea of developing this into a show. And I think that's the most compelling part of the story, the fact that in the darkest of places, he survived by humor. And it's not only that, but he found that his power is humor, and he found his destiny there. So I would say that that core is there. And other than that, you know, uh, a writing process is always a very, very fluid process. And I would say that not much of the real story is there.
Well, it's also, I think, probably beneficial to have the subject involved in the process. But I'm sure that can present challenges sometimes because they want to preserve certain things that may not be necessary for the story because it means something to them.
Yeah. Um, there was a point that he understood that he should just let me work. And and you know, I will give this to him. He took a step back, and I know it's not easy at all, to put your life story, and it's not an easy one, out there and not have control over it. But he was really, really brave, really. And it was not an easy thing for him to do at all, but he did it. And I am thankful for him for that, because I think that working with restrictions, or feeling uncomfortable to do something because someone might think something like that or not. So it eventually landed where it should have landed, that it's just us writing, and and he's giving us his blessing, and doing stand-up comedy.
I remember thinking when I watched that, especially compared with some of Ron's other shows, it doesn't feel particularly Israeli. They're speaking Hebrew, but otherwise, there's nothing about it that makes it seem like it's taking place in a specific place in the world. Was that intentional?
Yes, I think so. That's actually very true. And um I think that there's everything that comes out of Israel is political, right? Just by having the signature Israel on it. Um, but as a matter of fact, the youth prison is indeed a very unpolitical place in a very odd way. And everything that Daniel, the subject, has told us, there was no racism. The interjection between Arabs and Jews was never an issue. And you could theorize in many different ways why, but that is actually the matter of fact. And we wanted to preserve that because we thought that it's interesting that this is almost like a bubble, a neutral place, like a microcosmos of what it is to be a boy and not necessarily Israeli.
Obviously, Toronto to 2023 was a different time for Israel, and so
Yeah.
I don't know how much you've been able to show the series, in different places between now and then, but have you encountered people who have open minds who are willing to take this just as it is, or do you find people, as you said, are just assigning certain value to anything coming out of Israel these days in an unfortunate way?
Um, it might be too soon to say, as the show is airing only in a few days. You know, I think I will answer this question in two different ways. I mean, first of all, yes, it was in Toronto over 2 years ago, and the reason that we did not air was the war. We did not air it also in Israel. Um, because we didn't think that it's um a reasonable show to air in such horrible times. So it sat and waited. I mean, it waited for times to clear a bit. And I will say that, I mean, so and then it was very, very successful in Israel, so it kind of gave us, the push to say, okay, it's time to air this outside of Israel as well. Um, and I don't know where this will go. If it will create a political mayhem. I hope that it won't, to be honest, because I think um, art is art and film is film, and we are not representing a state. We are definitely not representing a government, and um, and even though I love Israel and everybody around me loves Israel as well, we are not. Um, art has nothing to do with that. Um, and I wish that the world at this point will see beyond that and perceive it not as a show coming from the Israeli government, but just as a piece of art.
I'd also be curious if Netflix offers the option to, do dubbing if people just watch it in English essentially and have no idea, once they
Exactly.
click play, they're like, oh, this is just an English show with, whatever.
Exactly.
The voices don't match up with the mouth movements, but otherwise it seems pretty good.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, there's a really terrific cast in this show, and I just want to take a minute to focus on Guy because I think he's so terrific. I know he did a little bit of work before this, but where did you find him, and was that difficult?
Um, Guy is really a phenomena. He did a few shooting days before. He was really, you know, not an actor even, and his father is an actor. So we managed to, he came to an audition after I think we saw 300 Boys or something like that. Um, because we were looking for a very, very specific energy, right? I mean, somebody who can carry a TV show on his shoulders, 8 episodes of high drama, high emotion, and also humor. So that combination was kind of tricky to find, right? Because you can find um, a kid who can be very emotional, but he's not funny, or a kid that cannot carry on his shoulders, days and days of shooting. So it was a very, specific combination that we were looking for. But to be honest, after his first audition, we knew we would take him. I gave him hell, like 13 auditions after that first one or something like that. Um, but we knew very, very quickly that he's the one. He has that thing, right? You put a camera on him and it sparks. So what else can you ask for?
Oh, now that you're on Netflix, I have to ask a question I always ask to people with shows on Netflix, which is all 8 episodes at once, or do you recommend trying to space it out?
Um, eh, I think you should watch one, two, three together and then take a break, and then four, five, six together, and then leave the finale for the end. But all in the course of a week, right? Start on May 2nd, play, press play and watch. But many
I like
people told me that they actually binged the entire thing over a weekend. I heard that a lot. Um, yeah,
Well, I know that you also directed a few episodes of a show that we've had here for a little bit now, probably about a month in the US, Long Bright River,
right.
which I feel like there is a little bit of humor, but I'd argue that show is probably darker than this one. What
Darker.
was that experience like for you?
Long Bright River was so much fun. First of all, I read the book before I even was invited to discuss doing the show, and I really loved it. Um, and and then when I was called upon perhaps directing the pilot, so I met with the writer and the showrunner, which are both really extraordinary women, and I really loved the fact that they have the guts to go with something so dark and important, and they were not apologetic about it. And that was very actually I would say the word inspiring, but it was inspiring for me to see that they're not afraid of doing something that is hard to watch. And obviously when Amanda came on board, that was already just, a blissful a blissful addition to this very beautiful show anyhow. So and working with her was really the funnest thing that I, as a director, that I did.
What's next for you?
um I'm developing a TV show, and I have a feature film in my sleeve. Hopefully soon for both of them.
That's great. And I don't know how much time you find to watch TV yourself, but when you do, what do you like watching these days?
I loved Adolescence. Speaking of Bad Boy, and it's really interesting, I think, to put the two of these one next to the other. Um, I really, really loved Baby Reindeer. I think those are the two that I liked a lot. I'm actually really enjoying the studio now. I think it's fun, and I really like it. The list is long, right? But I also think that there were really beautiful films this year as well, so I'm happy with that too.
What did you like?
Um, I mean, I loved Anora and The Brutalist. I love The Apprentice. Yeah, the obvious choices, I guess, right? Yeah,
Good
but I
list.
but they're
Well,
great.
thank you so much, Hagar. It's such a pleasure to meet you. I wish you plenty of luck in the future.
Thank you very much.